This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Oh, I am so freaking excited for today's guest because I will be talking to the dynamic, the multi-talented, the hilarious Jacque Lynn Colton. Oh my god. I mean, you know her from so many movies and TV shows. Oh my god, she was in every movie and TV show I ever loved. From movies, Love at First Bite, Mr. Mom, Just You and Me Kid, Prey TV, Iron Eagle, Quicksilver, Uphill All the Way, Heartbreak Hotel, Moving, for the TV shows, the sitcoms, CPO Sharkey, Three's Company, WKRP in Cincinnati, Life with Lucy, so much work. She was in that legendary acting group, La Mama Repertory Theater. She's done off-Broadway and on-Broadway stuff, lots of stuff, and we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff today, and I can't wait. I've been waiting 5 years to get this interview with her, and I thank Deborah White for connecting us. Thank you so much, Deborah. You are so awesome. Thank you. Also, rest in peace, Glynis Johns. She was 100 years young and was in so many old Hollywood classics. Mary Poppins, No Highway in the Sky, The Court Jester, Around the World in 80 Days, Papa's Delicate Condition, The Ref with Dennis Leary. What a career. Also, rest in peace, David Soul, Hutch on Starsky and Hutch. Another one of those guys that was always there and will always be there. So yeah, here is my interview with Jacque Lynn Colton. Hey Jacque, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am so spectacular. This is such a great thrill for me. So thank you so much for taking the time today because I've loved your work forever.
I didn't know that you were out there and loving my work. That's so nice to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I thank the magic of Deborah White for this.
Yes, she got us together. Listen, I want to say one thing. There's a picture of me in a turquoise jacket. It's one of my headshots. And I want to say, wonderful, talented theater person, Joel David, took the picture for me. That's on my front porch. And he directed me in Baby Doll. We did a staged version of the film script of Baby Doll, and it was one of the high points of my life. And he's a great set designer and theater director and the whole thing. Very talented. Joel David.
Shout out to Joel Duffy.
Yay!
So, going back in time, what age did you start gravitating toward acting?
That's really interesting. When I was a little girl, I had an older brother who was 3.5 years older, and he got to stay up later. But I would always sneak into his room and sit on the foot of his bed, and we would make up stories. So I think that was some kind of acting. We were role-playing. He was all the bad guys, and I was all the heroines. And I was the dogs that chewed their ropes where they were being held captive. But it was like, I guess, like cartoon playmaking, improvisation. But we did that for years. And then I was in the first grade play where I had to do a raspberry. And I didn't know what it was. And they demonstrated it was going something like that. And then in the second grade, I was the mama kitten. In Three Little Kittens, they lost their mittens. But that's all sort of minor league stuff.
Of course. So you did school plays and community theater and all of that?
Yeah, a little bit when I was really young. And then in high school, no, and yes, I did Mrs. McThing. I don't know if that was a Broadway show. I don't even remember who wrote it. But I played some kind of a lady playing bridge, a club lady. But really, the reason I sort of got involved deeply in it was because I was very shy and very smart as a little kid. And when I'd raise my hand because I knew the answer in class, my voice would shoot up, and I did talking like this. And I took a course in college when I decided to go to University of Washington because my cousin had gone there. And they had a Jewish sorority on campus, and I had never met very many Jews in my life, so I thought I would do that.
Yeah,
and I took the... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, where are you from originally?
Medford, Oregon.
Oh, okay. So you go to the University of Medford, you said?
University of Washington in Seattle. And there was a course called theater speech, and I thought I should take that and see if I can modulate my voice and speak more like a grown-up. And the teacher of it was a graduate student, and he put me in a play called The Chinese Wall. And it was a very small part, and I was terrified. And we had to say, "Hail to thee, Emperor Qin Shi Huang Ti, called Son of Heaven, who is always right." And I was a peasant woman, and I had been the assistant stage manager during rehearsals, and I yelled out sound cues during rehearsals, like trumpets and things like that. So the play started, the first preview, and I'm there bowing down to the emperor with my head down, and I'm thinking, I can't talk. I'm hoarse. There's not a sound going to come out of my mouth. And suddenly I yelled, "Trumpets!" and then the line came out properly, and it took a long time to get over those butterflies.
Yeah, but eventually you did it. I mean, look at all the work you've done.
Yeah. But I kind of faced up the thing that scared me the most. I was on the debate team in high school, and I was always sort of panicked, but I would know a few things, and I won some little trophies and stuff, and I've always been dealing with my shyness and awkwardness.
So after college, did you go off to New York?
Yeah, I did a lot of shows in college, and I ended up doing Look Homeward Angel, doing the lead role in that, and Summer of the 17th Doll, this Australian play, where my character was an old lady who was sort of comedic at first, but then in the last act, she sort of tells the gist of the play about love and bravery and stuff like that. And I realized I had to switch from comedy to being serious. And it was an interesting, I learned a lot just doing plays over and over. At the University of Washington, we did shows like 6 nights a week for 6-week runs. So you really got the feeling of a run under your belt, where you could say, "Why didn't I get the laugh?" or "Why didn't that joke work?" or "Why didn't that line come off?" And then you would do it differently the next night. And it sort of coalesced with all the stuff I was learning in class.
Yeah, when you were in New York, did you study with any of the famous acting teachers?
No.
No?
No, I didn't. I sort of had a 4-year theater curriculum, and we did everything from like designing costumes and painting sets, and the whole schmear, the whole backstage thing. And I was hired to do makeup for the Seattle Opera because I was good in my makeup class, and I learned to turn myself into a middle-aged woman for Look Homeward Angel. Some people, my mother and dad came to see it, and from Medford, Oregon, and they were sitting in the audience, and a woman said, "I've played bridge with that woman before. She's at least 55 years old. I thought they used students in these productions." And my parents were so proud. And so they understood that I would go to New York, and they were behind me all the way. It was really lucky.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious, though. Yeah. So, like, did you do any acting training in New York and see anybody who would later become famous?
I didn't really do any training with anybody. When I was in college, I heard the Nichols and May records.
Uh-huh.
Mike Nichols and Elaine May, and that kind of comedy, that character comedy. And I thought, I could do that. And so I got backstage in show business, and there was a comedy workshop, George Q. Lewis comedy workshop, and it was free. And there were all kinds of J.J. Barry and Ron Carey and Von Meter.
Von Meter. Wow.
They were all coming to work out and try out their material. Yeah. And the person I met there was Tom Ian.
Uh-huh.
And Tom Ian, who wrote Dirtiest Show in Town and Dreamgirls and all, and became a major playwright, was doing review material for Julius Monk upstairs at the downstairs. And so, like, during the workshop, he'd say, "Well, I have a scene I wrote. Could I have Jackie and a man come up and read this scene?" So we would read them in class in the workshop, and then people would comment on it, and we'd go out and have coffee afterwards. And then Tom invited me to see a review he was doing. I think Joe Sicari was in it. It was like, it was going to be a comedy record. And I came to that. And then he called me a couple of months later, and he said, "Listen, I've written a play, and I've lost my lead actress. And I'm kind of looking for a plump lady to do this role. Do you know anybody?" And I said, "Am I plump enough?" So he invited me down, and I read it, and I got the part. So that was my first off-Broadway thing. Frustrata, or the dirty little girl with the red paper rose in her head is demented.
Wow.
That was the title.
And then you do the baptism?
I did the baptism. Actually, I did it before that. I did the baptism, and I think I had met with Jerry Benjamin was the director, and Glynn Turman was in it. And there was a girl, Mary Claire Sharba, and we got to be friends. So later on, I brought her into the Tom Ian play. They needed a pretty girl. But the baptism was exciting. Leroy Jones, Imami Buraku, and Frank O'Hara. And it was on kind of across from where La Mama is on East 4th Street. I think the Writer's Stage it was called.
Yeah. You have to do a lot of traveling around for that show?
No, I kind of lived within walking distance in the East Village.
Oh, okay. And then you did the White Whore and the Bit Player?
Well, that was after we did Frustrata. Mary Claire and I, she had a scholarship to the Sorbonne because her father was in the Second World War and was killed. And so she said, I'm going to go to Europe. And I said, well, I'm going to go to Europe someday. She said, when? And I said, I don't know, but I've been saving up my money since I was babysitting when I was 12, like putting 50 cents in the bank. But I had a little nest egg, and she said, my mom doesn't want me to go by myself, but she met you and she thinks you're sensible and that you should go with me. So I did.
Nice. Yeah, I love the sound of that play. It sounds like a bawdy cabaret play.
Actually, it wasn't. It was, I asked Tom Ian, because I had done Frustrata, I said, Mary Claire and I are going to Europe, and I'm worried that we're going to lose our money or we'll end up broke. And could you write a play so we could play for our supper? So he wrote The White Whore and the Bit Player for two ladies to be sitting on stools and having this conversation. One is in a nun's habit and the other's in a silky slip. And she's like a Jean Harlow who got a wrinkle at 33, and that ended her career. And I was the white whore. I was the bit player who always played the bit roles.
Yeah.
And he wrote a line, and one day I shall open wide like the holy doors of Notre Dame on a spring Sunday, and I shall remain open for all, no matter their race, creed, or color. And we got to do that at a bookstore, George Whitman's bookstore in Paris, looking at Notre Dame. So it was very exciting.
Sounds like Tom Ian was he was kind of like a mentor, and he made your stage career.
We were kind of mentors for each other. We were both starting out then.
Uh-huh.
His brother, well, I actually had another experience. There was a dancer named Joel Awai, a Hawaiian boy,
uh-huh.
and we went to school at the University of Washington, and I was in a musical there, and he and this lovely guy named John Crumpler, they came backstage to see me, like, after each performance, and they said, you're having so much fun out there, we just can't take our eyes off of you, and we all became friends. And I went to see Joel's music teacher. I was going to study some singing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I should do that so I could be ready to audition for roles and everything. And her name was Jory Livingston, a singing teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was at her loft or at her apartment, a call came in saying that we're doing The Prince and the Pauper, and our director got fired, and we need a director right away. And Jory said, do you know any directors? And I said, well, I'm a director, because I had done directing at college at the University of Washington, and I was a good director. So she said, well, here's the address. Call this man and see if he'll interview you. So I called him, and he said, it was like a Friday afternoon, and he said, well, I'm seeing people on Sunday. And I said, I'm only 5 minutes away from you. I can take a cab and be right there. So I went to see him, and I told him that I had directed in 3/4 round, and I knew what I was doing, and I had seen his last show. I saw The Three Little Pigs, where the children were saying, Daddy, can we go home now? It was a terrible production. And I said, but I know what I'm doing. And he looked at me and he said, would $150 a week be all right?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, I'll pay you anything. But I got the job. And I had Broadway people in the cast and all kinds of talented people. And we did The Prince and the Pauper at Theater East, which was right next to Tom Ian's brother's shop, Serendipity.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. How does La Mama come into the picture?
That's interesting. Tom was working at La Mama, and I don't know. I mean, we just all we put on a show there, and we did a preview of the White Horn, the bit player at La Mama, and Tiny Tim came.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just reading through the script and trying it out before Mary Claire and I went on the ship to Europe. So I think I had done something else at La Mama, I'm not sure. But anyway, Mary Claire and I went to Europe, and we did those plays, and with Tom Ian they all sent us like $25 to help us mount the production in Europe. And Ellen came over to Europe, and we went around, like she used Mary Claire and I would go to the flea market and buy clothes there, and we only had a smattering of French, just like 10 words or so.
Yeah.
But they adored us because there was a pretty girl and the plump girl. And we would like hold up clothes, and crowds would come to these stalls in the flea market. And their business would expand because we were there. And they were so lovely to us at the flea market. Like one lady said, "It's getting cold. Do you have a warm coat for the winter?" And I said, "Yes, but it's too long for me." And she said, "Oh, bring it here and I will fix it for you." So they were wonderful to us and made us feel right at home in Paris.
Yeah, it seemed like you guys were almost like an improv group in a way because you were doing comedy.
Yeah, we were and having fun, and we were young and buoyant, and one of us was pretty and the other was funny, and there we were.
Yeah. How long did you guys go for?
The first time, it was in 1964, and we went in September and came back in June, I think. And then when we came back, we were at Ellen's. We went to Ellen's to tell her all about the trip after she had come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And she got a phone call saying, "Oh, I lost an actress, and we're opening day after tomorrow." And Ellen said, "Well, I have this Jacque Lynn Colton will come over, and you give her the script, and she will do the part for you." So I went on the first night with the book. The next time I improvised, and it was a woman who had seen a vision that Jesus walked into her room, and she got ecstatic. Mm-hmm. And she was like a little old lady in a buttoned up, a high neck dress and a little straw hat. And we had an opening night party, and this man came and said, "Oh, you've got to see this show. This woman does the most incredible performance." And I said, "Oh, that was me without the lipstick." And it was Tom. It was Lanford Wilson.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Oh, I have a play that I wrote," but I had seen one of his plays at the Cafe Chino. I saw Home Free, and it was a story of a brother and a sister in this absurd situation where she was pregnant and dying, and he was kind of weird. And anyway, the play just brought me to tears, and I loved Lanford Wilson's work. And so he said, "If I have a script I want you to read, there's a part I'd like you to think about." And I said, "I saw your play, and I'll do your part. I love your writing." So that was how I did This Is the Real Speaking.
Yeah. In 1973, you did Two Gentlemen of Verona on Broadway. Was Craig Richard Nelson in it?
I know Craig. No, I didn't do it on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
I was hired for the national company.
Oh, okay.
Alex Elias did it on Broadway.
I love Alex. I talked to her last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did her part in House of Blue Leaves in the original company. When she left for vacation, I was the peanut butter nun.
Yeah.
And then I did her part in Two Gentlemen of Verona when she left the production. I was the original Lucetta in the national company.
Yeah, it was such a small world back then. Everybody knew each other, you know. There was no internet. Everybody hung out and talked back then.
Right. And Alex and I were friendly. I remember she came and said goodbye to me before I went on the road. And that was exciting, that national tour of Two Gentlemen of Verona.
Yeah, I just love Alex, special lady. So, getting into film and TV credits, the first movie on your IMDb is The Hookers.
Right. Do you know anything about it?
I don't, but it sounds like a steamy movie.
I had made a friend, actually, when I was in college, Shel Silverstein and his friend Larry were walking in the halls of my drama school, and we became friends, and they took me out to dinner and said, when you get to New York, give us a call. So their photographer friend took my first headshots, and let's see, and there was another photographer named Joel who wrote and directed and starred in The Hookers. He was like an actor and a producer of low-budget films.
Right.
It was only suggestive. This was like, there was not nudity or sexual activity. It was kind of suggestive. And this man, his wife was kind of a gold digger. Mm-hmm. And I was their maid. And so it was one of those that I get to go. I'm going to go out on a date, and he says, "You'll be beautiful," and I say, "Oh no, I'm not beautiful." And then he takes the pin out of my hair, and the hair falls down to my shoulders. Right. You know, Miss Jones, you're lovely.
It's cliche. I've seen it in other movies.
Every movie.
Yeah.
But it was very heartfelt, because I was really that girl.
Yeah. Love it. Then the pattern continues with Andy Milligan's The Filthy Five, which was Frederick Forrest's first movie. What was he like to work with, Frederick Forrest?
Oh, Freddie and I we had done some plays together at the Cafe Chino. Mm-hmm. We did Bob Heidi's Moon, and I was the neurotic woman in the go-go boots, pill popping, and he was kind of he was the good guy in it. But we had done a couple of plays together, mm-hmm. and so we knew Andy Milligan. I mean, he did costumes at the Chino, and we did I think the longest scene that was uncut, that went from us being together in bed in underwear. Mm-hmm. And then we have a fight, and he pushes me out of bed, and we have this hysterical scene. And he was just a joy to work with. He was a wonderful actor. He just passed away, but we had just reestablished contact after many years.
Yeah, he was on Facebook the last month or two that he was alive, and I was trying to get him on the podcast, but sadly it never happened.
Right. I don't know what condition he was in. But that's when I reestablished contact with him. I had seen him from time to time, like in an audience or at an event or something. But I hope he knew how much he was loved and admired.
Yeah, he was a very underrated actor for sure, and he was great in everything he did. There's only one reel of this movie in existence I was reading. It's a 20-minute German dubbed version of the movie. It's pretty sad that Frederick Force's first movie is a 20-minute German dubbed version, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of that movie? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That movie, I had to wear a wig.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, people would put their hair up in tight pin curls all over their head, so that they had like pin curls, and then they'd put a wig cap on, and then the wig. And in the movie, I'm sort of telling everybody off, and I walk down this long staircase, and I'm screaming at people and furious, and I rip off the wig, and I'm there with the hair like looking like a chipmunk,
Mm-hmm.
with throwing the wig down and ranting at everybody. It's one of the great comedy nervous breakdowns in the world.
Here's one I've seen: the female response.
Oh, how did you see that?
I saw it on YouTube years ago.
That was interesting. That was somebody, Tim, who was the director.
Tim Kincaid.
Yeah. He was a lovely guy. And I think we had done some things together at Judson Church. And he asked me to be in the movie. And that was, I guess Harry Reams was in it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he didn't have a reputation then. We were just a bunch of, out of work actors kind of looking to get a break and looking to do a role where we could show off our wares and stuff. So I was this sort of virginal secretary who was introduced into a kind of semi-swinging scene.
Yeah, he comes out of the room naked, and he takes you by the arm and takes you in.
Right, and I had this little ruffled gray dress that had a zipper or something, and he unzipped it very, very slowly, but I was fully underweared.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, actresses have told me they regretted doing those kind of exploitation movies, but they had to cut their teeth in order to move on to bigger and better things back then.
They actually were not like, this was all before the dirty ones, the
X-rated porn.
These were not X-rated in any way. At least my parts of them weren't. I didn't feel like they were dirty. I felt like we were all sort of exploring filmmaking and, trying to make it look good.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a great way to look at it. That's how I look at it. Then you were a regular on the Burns and Schreiber Comedy Hour. Yeah.
Avery Schreiber came to New York, and we did a children's TV show, and I met Avery and I'm trying to think of
Jack Burns.
Yeah, but he wasn't on that. It was just Avery. But when I came to New York, Avery had said, if you ever come to New York and I'm doing anything, look me up. And Barbara Minkus and Barbara Sharma were both in that children's show with me in New York. And they said, Barbara Minkus said, when you come to L.A., uh, uh, I'll show you around and help you find a good place to live. And she did. And Avery Schreiber put me on an episode of the Burns and Schreiber Comedy Hour. It was just one episode. I wasn't a regular.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of great people on that show. There was Terry Garr, Fred Willard, Pat Proft, Robert Ito, a lot of great people. Even Lorne Michaels was a writer on there.
Fred Willard and I became friends. When I was running La Mama Hollywood, he came and did a one-man show there. And later, I was doing James Joyce's The Dead. This is like a few years before he died, and he came backstage and he said, "Oh my God, James Joyce, the snow." and he was just rhapsodic. But I knew he and his wife, and they submitted plays at La Mama Hollywood and theaters that I was involved in.
And of course, he joined the Ace Trucking Company, and I think he was in the committee for a brief time.
Right. I was just peripheral. I wasn't a member of any of those groups.
Right.
But Terry Garr and I later did Mr. Mom.
Right, which we'll talk about a little bit later, because I grew up on that movie. I love that movie. You did a pilot with two other guests of mine, Candy Azara and Barbara Luna, called Wives. Now, you would think with a cast like that, it would get sold, but why didn't you think?
I don't know. I just saw Candy New Year's Day. We were at a party together and we had a long talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks wonderful and gorgeous.
Yes.
And the other person that was in it was Janie Sell.
Uh-huh.
And she played one of the Andrews sisters on Broadway, and she was dating Treat Williams at the time.
Right.
And Janie Sell and Treat Williams and I went out for dinner one night near Paramount, and we went onto the lot at night, and we were dancing, like doing our impression of Singing in the Rain.
Mm-hmm.
And Treat Williams was talking that he had been offered to do the movie Hair, and he didn't think he should do it. And I talked him into it, because I knew Jerry Ragney really well. And I thought Treat Williams would be perfect for the movie version of Hair.
Yeah. Oh, he was such a good actor.
Oh, he was wonderful.
Yeah, Penny Marshall and Pat Morita were in it also.
Yeah, Pat Morita. No, that was a really fun pilot. We were kind of working class. I was the wife of a garbage man, I think. And we were kind of common, ordinary women. And Penny was fun to work with. We just got a great time, but it never got picked up. And right after that, they did Laverne and Shirley. And that got picked up.
Yeah, because Gary Marshall wrote this pilot, and, he was always, putting the same people and stuff, throughout his career.
Well, I never got back into a Gary Marshall project, but I would see him at the theater he ran in Toluca Lake, which is very near where I live.
You could have been great on Laverne and Shirley, just guest starring and playing a really funny comedic role. I'm surprised that you never got on there.
They never called me.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
And I never auditioned for it. It's funny, a lot of people that knew me or knew my work, or I thought knew my work, mm-hmm. That became casting directors, never called. So it was very often like people saying, "Oh, I wrote this play, and I can't find anybody to play this part because my mother was so wacky, but you're just like her." So it was mostly by people seeing me doing something and then calling me that I would get the next role.
Mm-hmm. In 1977, you worked with a 14-year-old Christy McNichol on the ABC after-school special, The Pinballs, and I got to meet Christy about a month before the pandemic hit at an autograph show, and it was one of my favorite experiences in the world. What was it like working with her at that age?
It was delightful. I don't think I had a lot to do with her in that movie.
No.
I think
You drive her at the beginning. You see the two of you in the car. You know, you're actually a really nice adoption agency lady, and she's just got a chip on her shoulder because she's been shuffled around her whole life. And then you drop her off at the foster home.
Right. I didn't have much anything memorable. I was so happy to do an after-school special, and to have a nice job and a character.
Yeah, then you did a hilarious episode of CPO Sharkey, which I watched the other night on YouTube.
You did? It's playing on YouTube?
Yes,
Okay.
and I gotta tell you what you said. That was so funny. So you're in a group therapy session with Don Rickles, and
Right.
you say, he doesn't have to bear his nakedness to me. I'm only interested in the nakedness of his soul.
Oh my God! I don't. That's a great line.
Yeah, and then the psychiatrist says, Thelma, tell him about love, and you're like, I'm available.
For that role, one of the things was I thought about how she would dress, what she would wear.
Yeah.
And I had a navy blue pantsuit, kind of polyester, but kind of cute looking, and a pink blouse, but it had like bouquets of flowers, like small flowers on it. And I brought it in because they wanted to see my wardrobe. And I said to the wardrobe person, I'd love to have like some flowers to pin in my hair that sort of like the flowers in the print on the pantsuit. And he said, can do, will do. And I wore that. And after the show was on the air, a lady stopped me in my bank and she said, oh, weren't you just on CPO Sharkey? I loved your outfit. You had matching flowers in your hair. And I thought, that's the power of costuming.
Did he insult you offset?
I actually went out to dinner with the whole cast afterwards. He and his wife were so lovely and so nice. That whole cast was just adorable.
Oh, was Peter Isaacson there?
Oh, yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
I haven't seen him since, but I adored him, and I adored Don Rickles.
Yeah, I talked to Peter last year. He's a great guy. And Beverly Sanders is in that episode. She is so beautiful, and her facial expressions are priceless. When Rickles is trying to be romantic, but he ends up being rude, I mean, her reactions are hilarious.
She was a wonderful actress. We were friends for years and years.
Oh, that's sweet. It's the 45th anniversary of Love at First Bite. How was that experience?
That was a wonderful experience. Stan Dragati and I did a bunch of commercials.
Yeah.
And he was married to Cheryl, what's her name, the bathing beauty, the Cheryl Teagues.
Cheryl Teagues, yeah.
And Stan Dragati he directed Mr. Mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was part of his regular group, and I did commercials for him, and Terry Garr was. And so he said, I've got this wonderful part for you in Love at First Bite.
Mm-hmm.
And Artie Johnson never spoke a word to me. He snubbed me, and I was his seatmate in that.
Oh, God. He was a genius. He was such a comedic genius, though.
I imagine he was, but I had that happen on a few sets where these stars would be very distant because I was, bit player or whatever. But they were supposed to do a scene that they couldn't put in the movie, but we all laughed about it. That stewardess said, do you want coffee, tea, or chicken or beef or something? And I said, just a little something for my cat. And then in the morning, after when we arrived, the cat cage is empty. And the scene that was cut out was I was supposed to say, "Stewardess, during the night, this man ate my pussy," or something like that. But it never got into the script. But we were hoping.
Was that cat well behaved, though?
Oh, yeah. It was probably tranquilized or something.
I mean, George Hamilton, Artie Johnson, Richard Benjamin, Susan St. James, that's the best of the best there.
Absolutely. But I only had anything to do with Artie Johnson and the kid again.
I'm sorry he was distant, but he was so brilliant, that guy.
Yeah. You called that a cult film. Is it a cult film?
It is definitely a cult film, yes.
Do people go and do autographs from cult films? Because I was talking to friends of mine who were been in horror films.
Yeah.
And they go to signings and sign autographs and stuff. But I've never been to anything like that. I didn't know I was a cult film person.
Well, that movie, that movie's a horror comedy, and it's got old Hollywood people in it, so I can't imagine that one be a horror convention one. But yeah, I mean, they do go to it. I mean, I know that Barbara Luna, she, books a lot of people at the Hollywood show in Burbank. I'm sure if you contact her, she can get you in there.
I don't know her, but that's interesting. I'm not familiar with all of that stuff, but it's interesting. I mean, I'm very happy doing what I do.
Yeah. But yeah, Mr. Mom, I mean, that was another staple of my childhood. You play cards with an unshaven Michael Keaton, and Miriam Flynn is in that scene, and a couple other ladies. And then, of course, Terry Garr comes in. I can imagine that was fun to do, because I heard Michael Keaton's just the nicest guy.
He's very sweet. He was not, we didn't have a lot of interplay. I mean, he was busy doing his big role, but it was so much fun going to the strip club in Mr. Mom.
Yeah.
And I think I was bouncing so hard on a plastic chair that it collapsed.
Yeah.
But that's not in the movie. But I got to put money into the guy's dance belt or whatever.
Yeah. I forgot about that scene too. Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot.
And the card game is funny because a lot of people said, they're playing for coupons and passing out coupons, and somebody said, "Ooh, Sunswept Beats" or something, and I said, "I love
them." Yeah, it's such a funny movie. It's John Hughes. I mean, John Hughes was brilliant. Then you had a tiny part in one of my favorite comedies of all time that nobody remembers, called Just You and Me, Kid.
Oh. Yeah. I was doing a play, a play in Long Beach, and they let me off for one performance so I could do that shooting.
Uh-huh.
And George Burns, who I had grown up with, the Burns and...
Yeah.
Burns and Allen. I mean, he invited me into his trailer to run lines with him, and we talked, and he talked about he and Gracie, and it was just lovely. And Brooke Shields was in that. Just You and Me, Kid.
Yes, indeed. I've talked to Leonard Stern's daughter, Kate, and Andrea Howard, who played the nosy neighbor. And it's something strange. The movie didn't last long in theaters, and it went straight to cable, and it's never been released on VHS or DVD. I don't know why. I mean, it's a very funny movie.
It was the sweetest scene with George Burns, because I'm the checkout clerk at the grocery store, and he's kind of stealing cans of this and that and being kind of cute and clever, but he pays me a compliment and says something about me losing weight, and I kind of blush and stammer, and say thank you or something. But then I had to go in and dub that, in a studio, do the sound for it. But the response one has when one gets a genuine compliment and they're a little embarrassed and overwhelmingly delighted, that's not easy to do on a sound stage. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Wow, I didn't even realize it was dubbed. Next time I watch it, I'll look for that. But yeah, you say that you need an incentive to lose more weight, and he says, lose 10 more and I'll marry you.
Yeah, that's the line. Oh, I'm glad you remember these lines.
Oh, God, I had that whole movie memorized since I was 5 or 6. I love that movie.
There were all these old comedians in it with George Burns, right?
Carl Ballantine, Leon Ames, Ray Bolger, Key Luke. Yeah, I mean, there were actors. I mean, Carl Ballantine was a magician, but yeah.
Carl Ballantine, his daughter Sarah, and I are very good friends. I didn't realize he was one of the people in it. Oh, so I worked with Sarah's mother and her father. That's wonderful.
I've had Sarah on. She's a wonderful lady. Wonderful.
Oh, yeah, we're very good friends.
I just recently saw Prey TV, and I've interviewed six other people from it, and I had never even seen it. So I happened to find it on YouTube because I was like, okay, I think it's about time I've seen this movie because I've seen it on everyone's IMDb. I've talked to Archie Hahn, Joe Bratcher, Jed Mills, Rosemary Alexander, and Charlie Brill from it. You and Paul Rubens play like aerobics instructors. I love Paul Rubens. Right. I cried for a week when he passed. What was it like working with him?
I adored him. I just adored him. And we were a funny comedy team. And it was just a dream. I mean, that whole episode, that whole shooting period, and working with Archie Hahn, and it was just fabulous. That movie,
mm-hmm.
I think the Monty Python group did The Life of Brian and it was released about the same time, and I think it canceled out Prey TV.
Interesting.
Because it was a spoof of religion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were not comparable in any way, but I think something like that happened.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Paul is like a Richard Simmons type in this movie. Yeah, I met him at an autograph show in 2019, and he was such a mensch, one of the sweetest guys. And yeah, he formed my early love of comedy, with Pee-wee and all that stuff. And so it was just the biggest tragedy. And Archie, yeah, I love Archie. It's funny. When I talked to him a couple of years ago, his biggest movie role was in Meatballs Part 2, but I didn't realize that he had a big role in this too. I actually kind of regret not bringing it up, because he's so good in it.
He's wonderful in it, and it's a darling movie. I mean, it really is adorable. And we went from doing real aerobics to doing religious aerobics. And
yeah.
Paul wasn't Pee Wee Herman. I mean, he had done that character at the Groundlings, but that wasn't yet who he was. And he wasn't identified with that so much back then. But that was a great. I thought that movie would have more life than it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's Rick Friedberg, who I think is an underrated genius.
The production team was Rick, Nick, and Dick.
Nick Castle, I met him too.
Yes, and then there was Tina, Nina, and Gina that were on the production crew. So it was that was a fun time.
Oh, so you guys would do like wordplay jokes on each other's names?
Just me, I think, because I'm an old proofreader from Newsweek, and I've always been had fun with words, but that always seemed funny, Rick, Nick, and Dick.
How was working with Charles B. Griffith on Dr. Heckle and Mr. Hype?
Charles P. I don't remember him at all. Dr. Heckle and Mr. Hype was very weird.
Yeah. I saw it one time years ago.
I don't think it was very memorable. It was about fat ladies getting transformed.
Yeah.
Something like that. Wasn't Cannon? Didn't he produce it?
Oh, you mean William Conrad Cannon?
No, I'm not sure.
Oh, you mean Roger Corman? I know produced it. Oh
that was right.
Oh no! Oh, Cannon! Oh, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus. Yes, they did produce it, but Corman actually he had like an uncredited co-writing.
Yeah, and who was the lead? That
Oliver Reed.
Oliver Reed. He was the deal on that. He had the makeup ladies terrified. He was coming on to everybody, and there was a cast party where I had a young, good-looking, my boyfriend at the time, and Oliver Reed, and he picked a fight with him or something. He was drinking terribly in those days.
Oh, he was always drinking. Yeah, he'd go on the Tonight Show drunk.
Yeah, but I remember like the makeup ladies and the hair people were just whispering, "Oh my God!" And then he said to me, "And you should be barefoot and pregnant," or something like that. I mean, he was just a holy terror on the set.
Yeah, I've heard those stories about him. How about WKRP in Cincinnati?
Oh, the men were really sweet on that. Mm-hmm. What's the blonde lady that played the lead?
Lonnie Anderson.
Never said a word. I mean, never even said hello to me.
Yeah.
But the men were just adorable, and that was like great fun to do.
Yeah, you play a nurse who's delivering a baby.
Alan Ann McClary, right?
Yes.
That was the Gordon Jump's wife on it.
Right.
Yeah, and she was wonderful. And sometime later, I did Our Town with her. Mm-hmm. That Gower Champion directed at Long Beach.
You did a couple episodes of Three's Company. My favorite one is the one where you're the wrong girl that Jack has dinner with.
Right. Well, there's a whole story there.
Okay.
Because when I was on tour with Two Gentlemen of Verona, my aunt, my dad's older brother's wife, notified me that we had family in Canada, and if I was going there, she would have them look me up. Mm-hmm. So we opened, like it played in New York, like a one preview, and then we played in Toronto for 3 weeks. And during that time in Toronto, I got a call from these family members, and they were going to pick me up and take me out to brunch. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that that they're related to Monty Hall, married Marilyn Hall, whose mother was my father's first cousin.
Wow.
An old lady named Goldie, and so she gets in the car, and they say, "This is Jacque Lynn Colton." And she said, "Is she Jack's daughter?" And no, she's Sam's daughter. And that's my dad, Sam. And she burst into tears. "Oh, I loved Sam. He was always so sweet." So that's how I found out that Joanna Gleason is my distant cousin.
I've been trying to get her on the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, when we got to L.A., the Halls came over to the Oakwood Garden Apartments where I was staying temporarily, and met my folks and me, and we all had a little reunion, and Joanna and her brothers and sisters.
Wow, I didn't know you two were cousins. Crazy.
Yeah, we saw a little bit. This was what was funny because I did Two Gentlemen of Verona at the Music Center, and Paul Gleason worked at the Music Center, and she married him, and I think she studied musical comedy with him. He was kind of an expert in staging musical comedy and stuff, and then he formed a little troupe from students at USC, which was John Ritter and his friend Jack, who was a director, and I was part of the troupe. There were like 4 or 5 of us, and we would go around to all the grade schools in Southern California, and we would do a little presentation. We would talk about acting and theater games, and we did a little play that John Lennon had written and did a little demonstration, and then each of us would go into classrooms and do theater games with the kids. And John Ritter was part of that company, so he and I worked together for like months and months and months on these school tours. We would do it like 2 or 3 times a week. We'd go to these places and perform and do our little thing. So this was about 8 years later. He was on Three's Company, and I hadn't seen him. And I got cast in Three's Company, and I come on the set, and he goes, "Jacque Lynn Colton," and he grabs me and hugs me.
Yeah.
And Joyce DeWitt was so sweet. They invited us to have lunch with them, but he and I were able to be like physically close and adoring with each other. So we were very free with each other on the set of Three's Company.
Yeah. He serenades you, and you show up to his apartment, and you say to him, "That's my favorite song, next to the Star Wars theme."
Did I say that?
Yes.
Oh my God, I don't remember that. I thought I said, "Your flowers hit me in the face."
Oh, you did say that too.
And then I think I said something about, "Oh, I'm in 7th heaven."
Yeah, and then when Gwen Humble, she shows up as the stuck-up dream girl, and she's just so awful to you. He tells her to leave, and then she's like, "I never want to see you again." And he says, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn."
I don't give a damn. I know. Just brilliant. Just brilliant.
He was such a talented guy, John Ritter.
And he would give comedy lines away to other people in the cast. He would, and he rehearsed the climbing up the drain pipe for the serenade. He rehearsed it on his lunch hour. He was like a hard worker and a generous person. One of the great people in my life.
Yeah, do you remember anything about Don Knotts there?
No, I never had. He wasn't on the set that day or those days.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was such a great show.
I remember Nancy Ritter, his wife, was on the set, and their children, a couple of kids were in the dressing room. So then I did another episode of Three's Company, playing a different character. Right.
Yeah, he says to Victoria Carroll, "Hi, I'm Jack," and your back is turning. You're like, "Oh God, they're always hitting on me."
Yeah. You guys will never learn. I have a boyfriend.
Yeah. How about Iron Eagle?
Oh, that was it. Sidney Furie, right?
Sidney J. Furie, he directed it, yeah.
Yeah. So I was probably at my plumpest at that time, and I was in this uniform. I was not feeling very pretty, and we rehearsed the scene like we were in Palmdale or somewhere, miles from L.A., and that was just a lot of fun. I think we did I got it on the first take and it worked. And I said, well, one take. And Sidney Furie says, not with me. I'm a director who likes to do my own takes. So we did it a few times. It was just a nice thing. I've gotten recognized like at a shop in Seattle. People have come to me when I'm in a phone booth and knocked on the door. I have a bet with my wife. She thinks you were on Three's Company, and I say no. Those roles I've gotten. People remember me a little bit from those.
Yeah, I actually think Iron Eagle is better than Top Gun. I think Top Gun is overrated.
Oh, thank you. My God.
Well, it's funny. When I was a kid,
I'm in Iron Eagle too.
Oh, you're in that as well?
No, I think I'm not in the first Iron Eagle.
It says Iron Eagle, the first one on your IMDb. I can't remember if you were in that one. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
It's just when the kids decide to hijack the plane. But I never saw Iron Eagle 1,
yeah,
and
it's
I
the
thought
first one.
that I was. But I have no idea.
Then I remember when you were the waitress in Quicksilver, you called Jamie Gertz a bum.
Right.
All of us boys had a crush on Jamie Gertz back in those days. It didn't matter if she was homeless or not. She was gorgeous.
She was gorgeous, and it was hard to do to get that sarcasm and meanness. Kevin Bacon was lovely, so I'm always part of Kevin Bacon.
What was your scene in San Francisco?
No, it was just on a lot around L.A.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it was shot, all the exteriors were in San Francisco, where I'm from, and throughout my childhood, whenever we drive around the city, we'd see, I was like, wow, that's where Quicksilver was filmed,
Oh! No, but I love San Francisco. My dream was that I would live in San Francisco and commute to LA to do films, that I would have made enough reputation so I could just field all the calls from Hollywood and live in San Francisco. I love San Francisco.
Well, back then, a lot of movie stars and actors, they would go to hide out in San Francisco to get away from the bullshit of LA.
Right. I came to San Francisco when I was in college and in high school, and just had some romantic adventures there, and just thought it was the most gorgeous city in the world. And I spent 3 weeks there in 5 weeks in Two Gentlemen of Verona. So it was like being in bliss. Having a car to drive around in San Francisco, and playing at the Curran or the Geary, and hanging out afterwards. It was just bliss.
Yeah.
But it never happened.
Yeah, but I miss the old San Francisco. It's completely changed now. I
haven't been there.
Yeah, well, don't go, because it's not the same.
Oh.
I love Uphill All the Way. How did you get involved with that?
That's interesting. I must have been submitted for it by whatever agent I had. It was interesting, though. The director had written the script, and it had been a dream project of his for years.
Yes.
And
I saw an interview with Tillis and Clark when the movie came out. Tillis was offered the movie in 1974, but financing didn't come through. And then he happened to run into Roy Clark on the road, and Roy Clark told him he signed on to do a movie called Uphill All the Way. And he's like, I was asked to do that 12 years ago. And he's like, hey, you want to do it with me? So they did it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And Mel Tillis had gotten over his stuttering. He had cleaned it up so he was not particularly stuttering.
Right.
But I think I did a screen test, I read with Mel Tillis, and we had chemistry together. And the director was really grateful because it was a hard part to cast.
Frank Dobbs was his name.
Frank Dobbs, he was lovely. And he said to me, I want you to feel free to embroider this character and make her your own. And if there's something that pops into your mind that you think would make her a better character, just do it. So I had blonde streaks in my hair, and I was like a blondish redhead for that movie.
Yeah.
And I wore a corset, like with a huge push-up bra. And I have a photo that I ran in Variety, but it's me. It's between scenes where it's like a break, and I'm sitting there in my corset with lacy bloomers on and high lace boots and like feathers in my hair, and there's an old man about 90 sitting next to me looking really bored.
Yeah.
And and I have like a little heart tattooed on my chest, like a little drawn in ink or makeup pencil or whatever. But it's like an iconic picture. But I never thought I'd get to be a bar girl because I was probably in my 40s at that point.
Yeah.
But I had so much fun in that movie. And when I did, do you remember the scene with Mel Tillis in the bedroom?
Yeah, you tell him that all it took was the size of a man's feet to tell if he's special or not.
Right. And then he starts saying, I gotta go. And then his suspender got hooked on the bedpost by accident, but it played out in the scene that he's trying to get out the door. When he's stuck to the bedpost, and he runs away, and I come out in the hall, and I'm holding a daisy, and as he falls down the steps or something, the daisy kind of wilts and folds in half.
Yeah. It was brilliant. Burt Reynolds was on set for the opening card game. I think he had just done City Heat, where he had his jaw broken and he was taking painkillers. Do you remember anything about him?
Right, that was a big deal. They flew him in. Oh, I love those people in that cast. We were like on location for 6 or 7 weeks.
Burl Ives.
Yeah, Burl Ives was lovely, and I had grown up hearing his music, but he was very warm and friendly, and I met his wife and got to sit in his trailer, and he played songs for us. And actually, it was all the comedians that were in it. I mean, it was just fantastic. And we were out in the blazing sun every day with gobs of sun protectant on, but it wasn't the good kind then. So we were wildly sunburned, and it was fun and scary riding in those cars on those little dirt roads. Oh, yeah, that was a great time. And I thought that movie would do something for my career, but it didn't get a big release.
Yeah.
And the producers, Renee, she was a big Hollywood producer, and her husband was a fisherman, and they were just the loveliest people. But the movie never went anywhere.
A lot of movies that came from New World Pictures didn't, sadly. Some there was a couple that did, but mostly no, because it was just, it didn't reach a wide audience. It's Renee Valente who was the executive producer.
Renee Valente, she was like a really big deal in Hollywood and in show business, and the sweetest lady. I just adored her.
And Elaine Joyce, she's the madam, and she has to have sex with the patrons in order, because she's short-staffed. And the running gag is every time you're in a new town, some guy recognizes her and thanks her for the blowjob, but in a PG rated way.
Right. She was lovely. We became buddies then. We had a great time together.
Now, one of the biggest highlights of your career has to be working with Lucy.
Not really.
I mean, I've heard stories about how she could be difficult and everything, but because she's such a genius, I mean, that's just got to be a huge coup.
It was lovely to get cast in it, and I was like very hefty at that point, and I was like Aunt somebody at the wedding, but I think that was the last Lucy show, and I did the last Mary Tyler Moore show in Mary.
Wow.
And it was like they were not big roles, and they sort of ended those episodes in those ladies' lives. I thought, that's weird.
Yeah, do you remember what Gail Gordon says to you? He says, let me show you to your 2 seats.
Something, yeah. Oh my God.
Those 2 are legends. Legends.
They were legends, totally. I don't think Lucille Ball was not paying any attention to me, and she wasn't being rude. She just had a million other things to do. But there was a little redheaded girl on the set that I think became a rock star.
Oh, let me look that up. Yeah. I remember at that time that the show was on, Bobcat Goldthwait said in his stand-up, he says, "You're going to kill Lucy. She's 80 years old. She's still doing pratfalls. She's going to die." Let's see. There was Jenny Lewis. Could it be her?
Jenny Lewis. Didn't she become... Yeah.
You played the mother of my very first guest on this podcast, Diane Franklin, on Charles in Charge.
I did.
Yeah.
I don't even know who she was. I don't think we had anything together.
Yeah, you were Mama Grundov. You were Russian.
Who knew?
Yeah. I'm sure she remembers you. She remembers most of her on-screen moms and stuff. And she remembers that experience because she got asked out by Scott Baio on that show.
She did? Oh, my God.
Oh, yes. Well, he was always asking girls out or hitting on them or something on that show.
Wasn't Ann Ryerson in it?
I'm sure. How about working with Richard Pryor in Moving?
Oh, yeah. When I got to New York, I went to see comedy clubs, and I saw Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby in their early days. And Richard Pryor was kind of being politically correct at first.
Right.
And then when he got into his groove when he became himself, he was brilliant. But I was so pleased to be in that. That was a fun thing.
Yeah, well, people told him to be clean so he can get on TV, and so he basically just did what Cosby was doing. But, once the albums came, then, it influenced so many generations of comedians.
There was a filmmaker who did a short film with him and let him be himself. I can't remember, but it was like a comedy special or something.
Yeah, Richard Pryor Live and Spoken.
Yeah, and then when he just got real, and it was just fantastic. I think by the time we did Movin', he
was sick.
A little bit, but he'd still muster up energy, and that was a fun thing, playing what do they call those ladies? Goodwill ladies, or...
Goodwill ladies, yeah, something like that.
That greeted newcomers to the neighborhood and gave them coupons to this and that.
Yeah. My mom loves Heartbreak Hotel. How was making that movie?
That was incredible. I was doing Summer and Smoke at the Amundsen Theater. Marshall Mason directed it. And then I got cast in Heartbreak Hotel. And I asked if I could be let off the theater for the last, they were going to extend it or something. So Beth Grant took my part. She had been standing by for me. And I got to go off and do the movie. And it was interesting because at that point, women had these beehive hairdos.
Yeah.
And in there was a hairdresser that was working with me at the Amundsen, and he said he used to do beehives for his mother in the 70s or 80s. And so I asked them, how are you if we're going to start shooting 2 days after I arrive, how will you have a wig for me? I have a wig guy who we can bring a wig with us, a beehive. So he got film credit for doing my wig, and I got to be Rosie, the pizza clerk.
Mm-hmm.
And they used my headshot to do pizza boxes with my picture on it. That was so much fun. Again, that was a movie where I arrived and they didn't have any costumes that would fit me or look good on me. So I went around to thrift shops in Texas and kind of bought my own stuff. And then I would come and have lunch on the set. And one of the producers said, "Why are you having lunch on the set?" And I said, "Well, I've been working and going to costume shops and trying to get my outfits for the shoot." And they were very mean to me. Oh. But Chris Columbus was lovely.
Yeah, Charlie Schlager, he had just done a movie with George Burns called 18 Again, and they trade souls in the movie, and Schlager, he imitates George Burns to a T as an 18-year-old boy. It is so hilariously funny.
I knew about that. He was very sweet on the set, and the girl who played his little sister, they were adorable.
Yeah.
Tuesday Weld again never spoke to me. We were often in the makeup room at the same time. Mm-hmm. And the makeup people would talk and banter with me. And finally, there was one day when we were shooting and we were sitting in a shaded area. It was like 110 degrees outside and they had fans running. And she said, "My feet always swell when it's this hot. Do yours?" And that was the first time she spoke to me.
The little girl who plays the little sister, that's Angela Goethals. I just met her at a convention because I remember her from Home Alone, which was the next movie Chris Columbus directed, and she calls Macaulay Culkin a laissez incompetent with a French accent. She's great.
That's funny.
She's great.
She was lovely on the set, and I loved doing that movie. And I loved the party scenes, and that was just so much fun to do. And I thought that movie should have had a bigger expansion or gotten more publicity. It's kind of obscure.
It is kind of obscure. It's a Disney movie too. It's really interesting, you know. But my mom, she had it on tape. She loved it when I was a kid. So, yeah, my mom loves anything Elvis, anything, even if it's a movie where someone's trying to meet Elvis. She loves it.
Well, that's when I became a big Elvis fan. When I read a book called Elvis, about Elvis and his mother. Mm-hmm. I was really perfect to play his mother with a little makeup, and my hair was the right length. And yeah. But the producers, they were going to do a big promo for it and everything. I think I heard something that they thought it was sort of that the children being in it made it inappropriate for PG, and that Tuesday Weld was having an affair, and something about G rating or whatever the ratings were. But my God, that all blew up very soon after that.
I remember when you were in Andrew Dice Clay's first HBO special, you and the husband are getting close fitted, and he insults both of you for being heavy.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard he's a
Dice
really nice
man.
guy. I heard he's a really nice guy off stage.
Yeah. We didn't have a lot of stuff with him. I knew he was not that guy. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. Did a lot of people see that Dice Man Cometh or whatever that was?
Oh, it was huge at the time because he had done the Rodney Dangerfield Young Comedian special earlier that year, and he was the first comedian in history to go from a Young Comedian special to his own special in the same year. I mean, it was just huge, and it aired right at midnight on New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day, and HBO ran it nonstop for about a year until the controversy got really, really bad with the feminist protesting and everything.
Oh, I didn't know what that was happening all around it, but yeah, that was fun to do, and it was fun to be involved in that.
And then, of course, the elevator scene in Gremlins 2, the new batch, where Phoebe Cates is laying on the floor with the gremlin sludge, and you're like, we'll take the next one.
Right. No, that was great fun.
Joe Dante, yeah.
Who directed that?
Joe Dante.
Didn't I do something else? I think I did something else with him.
You could have. If your IMDb is not complete, you probably did.
It was something that was set in the future.
Explorers?
Matt somebody. And I played a lady, and there were like hamburger wrappings and soda cans all over the apartment, and I had these magic bracelets and turned into an object of desire.
And this is a Joe Dante movie.
Max, It was Max.
Max Headroom?
Yes, I was on an episode of Max Headroom.
Did Joe Dante direct it?
I don't know.
Let me look at it here. Oh, no, it was Maurice Phillips directed it.
I don't know, but it was like a dream moment where you arise out of sloth and become a raving beauty and an object of desire.
Yeah. Another cliche of the 80s in movies and television.
Story of my life.
You know what? For a woman who was plump, you were a pretty lady, I thought.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So don't sell yourself short. You were a pretty lady who was plump. Plus size, as they call it now.
I did a 14-page spread in New Woman magazine that was in 1971, just before I went on the road with Two Gentlemen of Verona. So people were looking at it in buses and all over, and that was my career as a fashion model, which was sort of went on this at the same pace as my early movie and film and TV career.
Oh. One last movie I want to bring up, Toys, with Robin Williams.
Yes. Did you see me in it?
I haven't seen it since it came out. It wasn't one of my favorite movies of his.
No, but that was really funny. I was a lady in the supermarket, and I had just a small scene, and they said they were selling like some dog food that made the dogs poop better. Yeah. And they said, "Oh, we should have a dog in here." And I said, "Well, I live about 5 minutes from the location. I have a medium-sized dog named Filch, and I can bring her over, and she's really smart." And so I brought the dog, and they paid the dog $25 for the thing. But my scene was never in the movie, and I don't think the dog was either. And anyway, I'm listed in it, but that's it.
Do you remember anything about Robin?
I never saw him. He wasn't shooting that day.
Oh, okay. You did a lot of commercials in the 70s, and I've seen a couple of them on YouTube. You did like Midas Muffler's Cream Puffs, Kraft Parquet Margarine, KFC, where you and your coworkers dance on the table.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was back when commercials were lucrative.
The Kraft Parquet was very interesting. I was called in on a Saturday, and the director of that film said, "Oh my God," he said, "I've seen 300 actresses. Can you make me believe it's talking to you?" And I thought, well, this is acting 101, my God. I said, so I did it, and I got the job. But yeah, that was interesting because when I arrived in LA, I thought they all knew each other, and I was kind of the odd girl out.
Yeah.
So I would do my audition, and they'd say, slate your name, and I say, "Hi, I'm Jacque Lynn Colton, star of Stage Screen. Oops." And they go, oh, new girl in town. But I think I got 22 commercials the first 2 years I was here.
Wow.
And so it was, and I was able to put a down payment on my house, which I'm still in today.
Oh, congrats.
It seems like real estate's the smartest stuff I've ever done.
Oh, that is wonderful. Wow, almost 50 years, huh?
Oh, yeah, or more.
Wow, that is amazing. So what do you got going on these days?
Well, I got married about 12 years ago.
Congrats.
No, about 5 years ago, but we've been together. And we've been traveling, like since the COVID and all that. We sort of lay low like everybody, and then we've been traveling, and that's been lovely. But I still will do theater or anything that I'm asked to do. I do readings of new plays and, whatever pops up. I've been doing commercial auditions. We home tape and do that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm semi-retired, but I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm sure, during the pandemic, you probably were like, oh, God, is theater ever going to come back?
I know. It's sad because there's a lot of changes and a lot of theaters went belly up during that period. And a lot of people got out of the habit of going to theater.
Yeah.
Which is very sad.
Yeah. But, if you get, the opportunities, you go for them. You're like a bull. You can't stop. You keep going.
Absolutely. And I did Sam Shepard's Buried Child, about 6 years ago. And it's one of the great roles. And Sam Shepard had been my friend for years and years and years. And to get to do some of those roles, I got to do a play at the Odyssey Theater, Arsenic and Old Lace. And my husband got to play a role in it. It was so exciting to, be able to work together and to be able to do a great classic production. So It's been fun. It's been more widespread, but great fun and challenging. I mean, to learn pages of dialogue at my age takes a bit of doing.
How's your health overall?
It's great. I have replaced 2 shoulders and 2 knees, and I'm not in any pain at all, and I'm still dancing around.
That is wonderful, wonderful, Jackie. I thank you so much for finally coming on today. This has been a tremendous honor. I'm so glad Deborah could connect us. You have yourself a happy new year. See you on Facebook, and be safe.
You too. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm so excited.
My pleasure.
And good luck to you, and Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jackie. Bye-bye. Well, Well, there you have it. Jacque Lynn Colton. Ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, what a great lady. I'm so glad we could have that conversation today. She is an amazing person, a survivor, and she's still at it. God bless Jacque Lynn Colton. God. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.